To have honor, they say, you must walk in the light. But in these times of great darkness, the choice for some is not so simple. For these souls' destiny has chosen a darker route, a route without honor. When the clouds of darkness threaten to engulf the land, these brave warriors will sacrifice all to rid the world of its demonic forces. For they are the warriors of the shadows. They are ninja.
This is a game I always wanted to play ever since I saw an ad for it in a magazine. I could never find it in stores though when I was a kid. This review is really just me living out my childhood fantasies. My next goal? A threesome with Britney Spears and my junior high school social studies teacher. So, Ninja Shadow of Darkness, or just Ninja, is a beat-em-up game with some platforming elements. The game controls great. I mean, there are no problems executing the moves or running around. The only problem is in the difficulty here. The game can get pretty tediously tough. It doesn't seem so at first, but all the damage you take in the game, and there's a lot of it just because the game is really long, all of that adds up. And you don't have infinite lives, like you can go to a game over screen if you die too many times. So I think this game's problem is just its length. Like, the enemies aren't too difficult, but because you have to fight like waves upon waves of enemies, it becomes difficult. There are these chests all over the game. You just run up to these chests and pick up all the goodies like gold or keys inside, and you use keys to open up doors to progress further in the level. But sometimes these chests are surrounded by traps or are traps themselves. You can get hit by these if you're not careful, so you always have to be watching your step wherever you go, especially around chests. But if you are careful, you probably aren't gonna get hit by the trap. The thing is, just for how many chests there are, you are bound to get hit a few times, and that all adds up. So once again, the game isn't difficult because the traps are just impossible to avoid, but it's difficult because of how many traps there are. There's just a lot of opportunities here to fail. Also, there is platforming in this game. Like, you have to jump from platform to platform, you have to run through a corridor and make sure not to fall off the edges or get pushed or hit off the edges by the various enemies. These are also pretty tough. Once again, not because you can't control yourself well, because you can. Even when you have to make jumps in these isometric style views, it's still very much manageable. But because the game is so long and there are so many edges where you can just fall off and so many jumps you have to make, chances are you will fall off the edge here and there. How could this have been fixed? Well, very simply, give you infinite lives. The game should have given you infinite lives, or at least a lot more lives than you get in the game. You do get plenty of checkpoints all throughout the levels, but I would have gladly traded in 90% of the checkpoints in this game for the ability to have infinite lives, or just to have a lot more lives than you have in the game. There's a huge variety of different levels and enemies, like a ton. You could be running through a gorgeous forest with a bunch of critters running away from the combat in one area, and then running up a mountaintop in another area. You can be in a frozen, wintry tundra in one part of the game, and then you can be running through dark, damp catacombs with skeletons and ninjas popping out of the walls and head ninjas throwing TNT at you. To defeat these different enemies, you can punch, kick, jump, and throw punch and kick combinations. You can also block with the L1 button, and the R2 and L2 buttons have you perform special attacks, like throwing grenades on the floor or doing these spinning hurricane attacks where you aimlessly throw your ninja stars in a circle, hitting most of the enemies. And these should be used sparsely. I mean, you're gonna get surrounded by enemies a lot, so you always have that tingling in your hand to just throw down a grenade, but you only have so many grenades, so I would recommend saving them for later on in every level. You can also use the triangle button to throw ninja stars, and these are infinite. You can just keep throwing them until the samurais come home. The problem with these is it's kind of hard to hit the enemies when you're standing far away from them, just because you have to line yourself up perfectly with the enemy, and then you have to take into account that these don't do much damage. I mean, your regular punches and kicks kicks do a lot more damage. I think I've had the best time with this game when I pick up a sword, because with the sword, you actually feel like a badass ninja. Like, you're no longer taking on samurais with katanas with your bare hands. You actually have a weapon too. Once you get a sword, you actually become a really powerful ninja rather than just a regular kind of good ninja. The game just looks great, the action is fantastic, there is just a ton of varied environments, and the controls are really responsive most of the time. You will have a ton of fun playing this game, but because of just how many enemies and traps there are in this game, you will probably have to replay it quite a few times to actually pass it. I had to use a cheat code to get to some of the later levels, and the cheat code is pretty easy. Once you're in the beginning of the game, and the game states that it's checking your memory card, all you do is press L2 3 times and then R2 3 times, and you're gonna go to a level select screen where you can basically choose any level to play. So, how does this game stack up to what I thought it would be as a child? Because as a kid, I thought this game was gonna be like peanut butter and jelly being dipped into some warm milk. Just fantastic. Well, it's not fantastic, but it's definitely very good. I think for this game to have been fantastic, it would need more lives, or as I've said, infinite lives. That one thing really holds the game back from being very good. As it stands right now, it's a good game, but also a very challenging game. Ninja Shadow of Darkness gets an official stanburdman rating of a 7.7 out of 10. This is a game to check out, but you really have to be a good gamer to get anywhere with it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye, my friends.